Hello, Ange, and thank you very much for agreeing to come and have a little chat about the talk that you're going to give us at the conference. And thank you very much for agreeing to come over and speak with us.
You're very welcome, Georgie. Thank you for inviting me to talk with you for a little while. I'm very happy to be here and talk about some of the stuff that's going on here in Canada and kind of some of the things that I hope to present when I'm in London. Hopefully people will find it interesting.
I'm sure they will, and it's absolutely very relevant to the whole concept of the conference, obviously. Hence you're coming to talk. So how about let's start with the conference then, and give us an idea maybe about what your talk's going to be about.
Okay, so I'm basically going to talk quite a lot about emotions, and that's kind of the title of the conference, is looking at emotions and its role in pain. So we're going to be talking a bit about how emotions, particularly strong emotions that we all have, so it's a universal, a human thing, when they get blocked or avoided in various ways, how that can actually end up causing us a lot of anxiety, gets our nervous system quite activated, and that process in itself can lead to a lot of physical complications. So a whole plethora of different physical difficulties can come from the avoidance of strong emotions. So I'm going to talk basically about why it is that we have emotions, why we need to have them to survive, how they might get blocked, and how that might show up in the body sort of physically in various ways. And we're gonna have a look at videos to look at some examples of how different patients, who all have given consent for their videos to be shown, different patients show physical symptoms and how they connect to their emotions and their anxiety, and maybe the ways they avoid their emotions as well. So I'm going to be hopefully showing that, and that's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool when you see it for yourself on video.
Yeah, I've seen this, haven't I? I've been on one of your one-day courses as well.
For sure, yeah.
And on Alan Abbas, 3-day course with him. So that's why I wanted somebody like you to come and talk about ISTDP, because it is so relevant to our work, and it's another way in, especially for people who really need more support and guidance, which is what you can do, can't you?
Right. So, I mean, you make a great point. So I think what we're doing on that day is bringing lots of different professionals together who might all be working in slightly different models or different ways, but we all have a focus on the body, a focus on emotions, a focus on what might be getting in the way or what might be causing physical symptoms. Generally, ISTDP, so intensive short-term dynamic psychotherapy. And this is a method that was developed in the 60s by a practitioner called Habib Davanloo, who was a psychiatrist in Montreal. And a lot of research has occurred between now and then, and ISTDP has been found to be one of a number of models that are effective with this group, this population of patients who we might say have mind-body problems, or we could say they have medically unexplained symptoms, or they may have physical problems which have a medical cause, but the emotions about that are making the difficulties worse. So they may have a diagnosis, but because they're worrying so much or they're getting so anxious about their feelings about this diagnosis, it might be getting in the way of treatment compliance, taking medication. They might be stuck in a bit of denial, so they're ending up not getting the treatment that they need, for example. So ISTDP has been designed to work with, as I say, a very broad spectrum of both physical and emotional difficulties. And it's particularly tailored for the more complex and challenging end. So the patients that I would see here in Canada, I've just recently put a paper together to review my first 18 months of the project.
Right.
So, yeah, so I'm really excited about that. So basically, if you want, I mean, I can say a little bit about the service while I've brought it up.
You might as well, yes, while we're here. And then presumably you're going to give us some of the results on the day as well.
Yeah, so I won't reveal too much today to keep you tempted. But so essentially, I'm providing ISTDP in a family medicine practice or a GP surgery. So patients who come to their doctors and they're investigated maybe a few times and they can't find anything physically wrong on the investigations, It might be, and in a lot of cases, there's an emotional problem. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't a physical symptom. I want to really make that very clear. There is physical symptoms, whether it's back pain, nausea, fibromyalgia, where muscles are tense all over the body, headache. These physical symptoms are real. What we're saying is that the actual cause, instead of it being a disease, may well be an emotional problem. And so the great news is that if you don't have a disease, you may well be able to do something about these emotional difficulties in order to treat your physical symptoms, which may mean you don't need to be on medication for the rest of your life, that actually talking about your emotions could actually bring relief. And that's really what ISTDP is all about. So the population that I tend to see are quite complex and challenging, so we can have a really big mixture of emotional difficulties, physical difficulties, there can be social difficulties. But if we can treat, if you will, or if we can deal with the emotional component of these difficulties, people can cope with their lives just much better. Right? And they're able to get themselves out of some really stuck places in order to take care of themselves more. And that's what we find, is by helping people process the emotions that are causing anxiety that they've been avoiding, that they're able then to care for themselves, they're able to take a more compassionate stance towards themselves and to others. And that's really our goal, is to help the body process instead of getting activated and causing symptoms, and for people to have a better quality of life and functioning.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to your talk. And it's nice that you do video your patients, so we get to see, like you were saying, the interaction and snippets of those consultations. Which makes it more real, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's something that that not all therapy models do. It's inherent in ISTDP, because what we're doing is really focusing on the body. And we know as a group of professionals that we're human and we don't see everything. And we can only process so much information. So the video really, and this is how I describe it to patients, is it's our friend, and it allows me to be able to give the most effective therapy to a person to deal with their particular difficulties. And not only that, it makes what we do transparent for everyone to be able to see and to decide what they think about it. So we don't want to be doing things behind closed doors, especially if it's something really helpful. Yeah. So whilst it's taken me many years to feel less anxious about showing my own videos, as patients, you know, who have anxiety about that, by the time we've come through a therapy process together, generally the patients are saying, I want you to show this, to show other people that they can get through the difficulties. Wonderful. So it's it can be a very empowering tool, to give other people hope as well, that they can get over the difficulties through talking and processing emotions. Absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. Really looking forward to it. And just to finish on, you're clearly not Canadian. I know that you come from not very far from me in Yorkshire. Yes. So what took you over to work with Alan Abbas then? Okay, great question. So I'm originally from Lancashire, but have had a house in Halifax, Yorkshire. And then I find myself here in Halifax, Canada, which confuses a lot of people, including myself. So Dr. Alan Abbas, who's a psychiatrist who has been studying ISTDP for many, many years now, he is a pioneer, if you will, in the treatment approach, and he's trying to roll it out in different parts of the healthcare system. So prior to me coming to Canada, with the Centre for Emotions and Health, there was a project set up in the emergency department, or A&E, where basically people who were coming in with, for example, chest pain and they thought it was a heart attack, or severe headaches or other difficulties where the A&E staff couldn't find a physical basis, what they were invited to do was then go for an emotion-focused assessment. Right. To see if there may be an emotional problem underneath driving the symptoms. Through that project, which was very, very successful, I mean, I don't have the figures with me now, but it brought a huge cost saving to the department, because people weren't needing to use inpatient beds for as long. they weren't needing to have as many investigations. And because they were getting to the emotional drivers underneath what might be the chest pain, so the tightness in the chest, which is more than likely anxiety,
Yeah.
And then actually finding out, well, what's going on? When did this start? Oh, it started when, I don't know, my mum got taken to hospital. Okay, should we take a look at, you know, what are the mixed feelings that must be going on inside of you that kind of hitting you right in the heart? So that would be an example of an intervention that might seek to look at what emotions are going on underneath this symptom. So because that was a very successful project and it saved a lot of money, the government here wanted to invest and think of new ways to implement. And one of the ways was to think about bringing an ISTDP therapist into the family medicine practice. And so that's our aim. So we have a 3-year funded position and we hope it's going to get extended. Our recent results show that there is a good evidence that people who come to see me for ISTDP, where there's an average of 5 sessions, they're showing a significant reduction both in their physician visits, in their emergency visits, and in their use of specialty services.
Brilliant.
Also in their reductions in their self-reported physical symptoms and anxiety. So what they're saying is, I started off here in terms of anxiety, and after this service, I'm now here. And so we're building evidence to, you know, piecing together ideas that this is cost effective, that patients want it and they like to talk about the difficulties. They don't like just having a medical approach. They don't just want to be on medication. And so we're trying to really sell it and show that it can be effective in that way. So that's what I'm up to. So I'm kind of 20 months into that project now, and, you know, have just over a year to go, and working hard to see as many people as I can, and then get this literature out there for people to decide if, you know, if it could benefit in other services and in other countries.
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic, and I'm sure it will be shared. And I think what's so exciting is Howard Schuberner, who's also speaking at the conference, and Alan Bass are publishing a book this year.
Indeed.
Which the VIP ticket holders will be receiving in their digital.
Fantastic. So I've had a sneaky peek of that book, and it's fantastic. It's a really excellent integration of Howard and Alan's approaches. Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really interesting that they talk about, and I hope to talk about at the conference as well, is how we as clinicians and healthcare professionals also have our own emotions that get avoided and cause anxiety and symptoms, okay? Yeah. And this is really, really important that we become aware of this, because when we are not aware, it can lead to burnout, stress, medical errors, treatment misalliances. So a big part of what I'm coming to talk about is not just what happens for the patient, but what happens to us when we come up against really difficult to treat or hard to reach patients because we maybe don't know what to do, or there's something about them that makes it really hard to help, or maybe they're quite destructive somehow and they hurt themselves, and all of these ways can trigger our own emotions. So it's really important that we can become aware, and then we can help people to the best of our ability.
Fantastic. Well, I know I'm really looking forward to seeing you again, Ange, and also to listening to you speak. So thank you so much for giving us your time today, and I very much look forward to seeing you on the 15th of October.